Mother, a position, an act, a summoning, an expletive, a transition, an irreversibility. The word conjures comfort, expectation, humility, defiance, entanglement, lineage, disappointment, rage, and bliss. The state is simultaneously verdant and mundane, a vein of generational knowledge and deep intuition tempered by unknowing and unlearning. We are 7 mother artists creating from within our own mothering experiences, but also in response to our relationships with one another. This has proved sustenance, balm, commitment, and reckoning. We do this work to contextualize, remember, and honor all stages of mothering. By couching our questions in reprieve and tenderness, we reinforce connections to mothers who came before, to those seen every day, and to others who have yet to become.
My name is Brianna Allen, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist living and working on the tribal lands of the Nilchik Village tribe, land that is also still home to the Dena'ina and the Chugiak people. I'm the mother of Josephine and Manon, who are 4 and 2, who remind me daily of the absurdities and the surprises of motherhood. Although I don't bring them into my studio at these ages, much of my content brainstorming is done outside the studio with them, like on our walks, which turn into tandem stroller rides for the both of them, their babies and their baby stroller, for instance. The polarity of being a mother and an artist is a challenging one, but one role informs the other, and it becomes the reason for both. I find it fascinating that the best motherhood stories are usually told in secret or by confession in some way. There is a great deal of guilt, shame, and judgment around the subject. I solicited anonymous stories about motherhood and began sharing them on my social media. Soon I had nearly 50 stories covering a wide spectrum of experiences and emotions, most of which challenge the Stepford veneer that we are accustomed to seeing and believing. My art practice was adapting, and I was feeling liberated and even motivated to make work from these stories. When the overturn of Roe v. Wade happened, I realized it was paramount to include stories regarding the choice to become a mother at all. Those same feelings, guilt, shame, and judgment are among their highest when unplanned pregnancies happen. And here we are in 2022, losing the constitutional right to opt into motherhood. I felt driven to honor these voices to the best of my ability, especially since they were so validating for myself and others. The contributors of the Monologue Project have gifted me bravery to create work from my own authentic mothering experience. What a gift. These self-portraits were created in January and very quickly take me back to some of my more intense and vulnerable feelings as a mother. I felt touched out, which is a term used to describe how mothers begin to repel at being touched at all, because we're being prodded, pulled, and needed in every direction of nearly every waking moment. When people would tell me, savor the little years, I understand that sentiment, but it's important to me to acknowledge the visceral struggles of it too. I began exploring new materials summer of 2021 in my greenhouse, just where the baby monitor could still reach during nap time. Using the strong and lusty material of nylon and the heavy, humble gravitas of cement was totally thrilling. I felt giddy, excited, seen, hopeful, and empowered, making these fleshy, sexual, and threatening forms. And when they're hung together in community, they become an army of weight that lives deep in our hearts and bodies, carried forward by generations of mothering. To me, it felt like I was looking right at the thing that connects us all through the mothering experience. Most of my paintings begin with an idea for imagery, and as I'm working on the painting, my brain searches for the why of it all. While deciding about texture and temperature, I'm honing in on what assumptions we make as mothers And what generational knowledge do we have as children? Why do we lose it as we grow older? I had read that babies instinctively know to be gentle with an egg, and I thought that an interesting experiment to test. I had given my quintessential 2-year-old the egg without any prompts and began photographing her fascination and her curiosity. She immediately coddled it just like a baby, which nearly brought me to my knees, rocking and petting and coveting the egg. But then I watched her questions begin, her mind darting around boundaries and her own strength, typical. I watched her challenge the egg's shell with her gripping fingers and then go back to nesting it in her armpit. And while painting, I realized between myself, her, and the egg, everyone was making a lot of assumptions about fragility, both among ourselves and within society as it pertains to mothering. Which takes me back to the Monologue Collective Project and these anonymous stories, which have truly helped me feel normal and human, and even supported in these early, messy mothering years. Storytelling is the ultimate instigator of positive change, and we all need to practice deeper listening so we can experience deeper connections in the most vulnerable ways. With the help of so many mothers, I've been able to publish a collection of 100 monologues collected over the last 3.5 years, which will be released at our exhibit opening. It's my hope that these stories can give context, almost acting as collective testimony along the work. The art of creative collaboration is the most meaningful work to me, and I'm looking forward to the monologues performance taking place on Saturday, December 17th at Bunnell. Thank you to Pier 1 Theater, who's been the project's fiscal sponsor while the book was being put together. The proceeds of the event will benefit Ketchimak Bay Family Planning Clinic and Pier 1 Theater. And thank you to Bunnell Street Art Center for hosting the performance and inviting us all to share our work. Thank you.
My name is Carla Klinker-Cope. I'm an artist living and working in Homer, Alaska. I'm also the mother of 2 daughters, Ellie and Nova. They are 9.5 and almost 7. Becoming a mother reshaped how and why I create. As the physical, emotional, and social demands of motherhood began to constrict my time and attention, I experienced an intense upwelling of creative drive and vision as an artist. My work for Mother explores identity, legacy, and how what we believe becomes our experience of what is real. Through this work, I've developed a sculptural practice about mothering that relates to the body through wearable objects. In 2019, when my kids were 6 and 3, I began to challenge myself to do things that scared me in my artistic practice. I spent the year learning to paint with oils, something that had always intimidated me. On the left is one of my initial oil painting studies, a self-portrait of me nursing my first child. It's a dreamy and romantic, kind of sexy vision of mothering. Fast forward to 2021, I chose to paint from a photograph that my older daughter had taken of me nursing baby number 2. I liked the honesty of the pose from her point of view as a 3-year-old, but I was struggling to get the face right. On Mother's Day of that year, my gift to myself was time alone in the studio, and I spent that time burning holes in my portrait. By burning away the parts of the painting that weren't working visually, I was letting go of an old notion of self and a romanticized idea of motherhood. The paintings were of me as a mother caring for my children, but the burning opened a space for me as an artist and an individual. It was my way of redefining who I am now. I found that the brain space and problem solving that painting requires is not always conducive to the demands of mothering. Painting is a fully immersive, focused pursuit. And as I had less and less time to devote to developing my skills in the way that I'd like to, I began to feel really frustrated. I have had to figure out a way to continue and to deepen my practice alongside mothering in tandem with my kids. So much of mothering is about managing things, stuff, time, emotional states of being. For me, working in sculptural forms is an accessible way to keep making. I can stop and start, be interrupted, and incorporate the materials of our daily lives into my practice. This is keep your distance, Mammoth Coats, Mama and Child, modeled here by my daughters. Being a mother changed how my body is physically in the world. These wearable mammoth tusks are a way for me to transmute the anger and powerlessness I've experienced as a woman and a mother. I wanted to make a garment that empowers the wearer to command physical space. I've created a child-sized version of Keep Your Distance during the COVID-19 pandemic. My youngest daughter graciously let me add a fresh set of tusks to her favorite pink furry coat. These pieces are a part of my search to honor and protect what I love without causing harm to others. It's about the struggle to define and defend healthy boundaries and reflects a story of adaptation as a response to trauma and great change. This is hand-me-down, a grouping of concentric wishbone forms, and was the next step in working three-dimensionally. Wishbones for me are about my family, our traditions, and the underlying structure that gives form and meaning to our lives. They're also really fun to make. I approached the surface the way I would a painting. During construction, the largest wishbone cracked in places that were vulnerable to stress. I repaired the cracks with lace that I had used when I was a little girl, taken from doll clothes that I had made. These wishbones, with their patina and repairs, are still strong and protective. They nest together, they hold each other, and they mirror each other. Hand-me-down is about generations of mistakes and love. It's my way of looking back to recognize that the way that I mother my kids comes directly through the line of mothers before me. This is She Gets It From Her Mother. I pushed the wishbone form to an absurd scale and sheathed it in repurposed jeans that my kids and I had outgrown. I like poking fun at the idea of mom jeans, which is a decidedly unsexy garment. But in practice, mom's jeans are a sensory experience. They're hugged, caressed, wiped on, worn, and softened with use. This wishbone recalls the protection of a mother, the feeling of being a child clinging to its mother's legs. It can wrap around my neck and shoulders like a plow, a mantle, a garment, an ornament, a weight. It has its own shape, but it also requires the support of my body to hold its form. It was a challenge to stretch and piece together the denim because of the curved shape. While I was making it, the legs would flop around all over the place, and it felt like a wrestling match. It's hand stitched with wire thread, so it's covered with boinging silver threads, kind of like my own gray hair. In Bundle of Nerves, I continued to push that rainbow arch shape in a new direction. I was drawn to these masses of used hay ties for their earthy color and wild, abundant texture. They make me feel really excited. This fall, I was working on this project at my own mom's house, and she said they made her feel instantly cranky. Perfect. I want to show the feeling of being threadbare, of being worn out and nervy. Working on this piece became a visceral expression of survival mode. The nerve sheath is tightly stretched. Each little nerve bundle is obsessively stitched, and then the frayed edges of the whole thing appear to be coming apart into a tangled mass of raw nerves. I also think that Bundle of Nerves is about strength and resilience, about being stronger than we think we are. It speaks to perseverance, healing, love, and strength. After making the first bundle, I made another child version, echoing the idea that how I am as a mom and an artist, how I show up in the world, helps shape the experiences of those around me. Finally, here are some detailed images of the 3 pieces included in this show. My work is about process, about materials, about having the spark of an idea and then fanning the flames in different directions to see what catches fire. It's about making do with what's available to me and turning the process of making into the art itself. And it is the same way that I show up as a mother. Thank you.
My name is Myesha Callahan Freet, and I currently reside in Chugiak, Alaska. I am the mother of one, Vassar Ray Uriah Callahan Freet. And right now he is the central muse of my work around laboring. Currently, I'm exploring items that mothers tend to keep. I constantly find myself every December right before Vassar's birthday, going over the items that I've decided to keep and questioning myself, why am I going through the process of saving these items? I use a scanner to document the items and decided to ask other mothers, what are you keeping? The title of the project is called Share the Load. I asked the mothers to let go of these items that they have been carrying around, some for years, some not so long. And it's generated the questions of what are we putting our emotions into? Why are we carrying these things for our children? Are we going to give them back? What emotions come up for other mothers when they see other items? Who can relate? A big part of my process is actually using Vassar to make art with me. This is a still from a 15-minute long video recorded 2022 when he turned 15. I carried him for 15 minutes on my back through the woods. The years and the toll that mothering has taken on my body. It's not only a difficult mental process to now parent a teenager, but it is physically demanding. And I wanted to show that in video form. After the video, I was sore in my body for probably 2 weeks, which I think just really speaks to the experience of mothering. Although one portion is done, we still feel it after. For the show Mother at Bunnell, I will be doing a 15-minute long performance art piece entitled Nurture. The point will be to reflect on the act of mothering, the practice of caring for, and then releasing, because that is the point of what I'm doing with Vassar. I want to care for him, but I also know that I will have to let him go.
My name is Summer Hom. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a visual artist that has been living and working on the traditional and unceded territories of the Tanana, Dene, and Dena'ina peoples since 2005, a place also known as Fairbanks, Alaska. I have many roles in my community. I'm an arts educator, adjunct professor of drawing at University of Alaska, Fairbanks. I work for our local nonprofit arts organization called Fairbanks Arts Association as the exhibition technician. I install all of the rotating exhibits at their gallery. I'm also a practicing studio artist and the creative director of the Far North Quilt Trail project. These are my 2 children, Birdie, who is almost 10, and Samson, who is 7. I have 2 decidedly different modes of practice that are inherently intertwined. The Far North Quilt Trail, Alaska's first barn quilt trail, was initiated in 2019 as an effort of creative placemaking, designed to ignite the eyes and minds of Fairbanks and Alaska and surrounding communities with vibrant public art. Large-scale, site-specific geometric paintings of quilt block designs placed on the sides of barns and other buildings have become a self-guided touring trail of public art that highlights architecture, honors familial heritage, and ushers in tourism to often overlooked areas. My vision was to stretch the ideas of where paintings could live. I commenced this project by building a professional scaffolding, collaborating with organizations, and deepening previously established relationships. I reimagined vacant and overlooked spaces and found that my ideas on how to transform them were welcomed. I unearthed a backdoor to funding opportunities by partnering with local nonprofits and attaining fiscal sponsorships, and began grant writing and gathering funding, which would allow me to utilize the buildings around Fairbanks as a gallery space itself. I discovered my community was exuberant to participate, which solidified my purpose. Each proposal is grounded in listening, and every barn quilt is unique to its location, which requires research, brainstorming, and team building with partnering organizations and businesses. Since 2019, 42 barn quilts have been added to the trail, which stretches statewide from Fairbanks to Ketchikan, with 24 of those painted by community members. The great strength and value of this project is its accessible nature. Whereas some public art is commissioned and can be made of expensive materials, this project has community engagement at its center, where the designs, materials, locations, and most importantly, the intentions circle around inclusivity. Initiating the quilt trail gave me answers to many questions I had as an artist. How can I build community through art? How can I gain experience creating and installing public art? What opportunities are out there for artists like me? Can I create my own opportunities? And how can I extend those opportunities to others? This project particularly resonated during the pandemic, as many people were looking for ways to be connected while still remaining distanced. I was a working studio artist when my daughter was born, and a stark reality set in when I couldn't access affordable childcare. It just made sense to stay home as my partner made more money than I did. And I found myself living a gender role that challenged my artistic identity. It was a complete upending life change, being unable to work outside the home or have any time to dedicate to painting. A few years later, I welcomed a son and found myself struggling even more to carve out time for art. But as our kids grew independent, I eased back into my practice and experienced both internal and external success when I let the restraints of motherhood inform it. One of the restraints that I have faced is studio space. I've had to be flexible and innovative to overcome this major obstacle. For the past several years, I've moved my studio every 6 months. In winter, I've been caretaking for a guiding company in exchange for the use of their small, dry mother-in-law apartment above their business. And in the summer, I utilize this 1950s clipper trailer located on my property. The trajectory of my practice changed extraordinarily when I began painting quilts. Creating work inspired by these generational hand-me-downs has provided an opportunity to link to my familial past and explore themes of maternal impulse and the banality of domestic labor. The aesthetic intricacies and imbued histories of handmade quilts are a rich departure point, and one that speaks directly to my experience of being an artist mother, which is a pieced together balancing act. The Fire and the Quiet is a painting from a body of work titled Loose Quilts, which was exhibited at Well Street Art Company in May of 2022. I'm excited to share this painting in our Mother exhibition because it represents a direct pendulum swing to the hard edge abstraction of the barn quilts. Here, I'm using visual texture and a simple pattern to create surface energy and tension through value and tone. My objective while working on this painting was to remain loose and spontaneous. So looking directly at actual quilts, utilizing them as a departure point for painting, I discovered rich roadmaps of composition and a wealth of stylistic directions, a home to patterning that lends itself to painterly abstraction. In this painting, Fading in the Sun, I was thinking about quilts drying out on the line and blowing in the breeze. What object is more comforting or motherly than a handmade quilt? Transcending function, a quilt warms the heart as well as the body. Creating work in response to our relationships with one another is self-evident here in my piece titled Mother Braid. Their mood is not my mood, which is currently on view at the Alaska Biennial at the Anchorage Museum. During the pandemic, I had several opportunities to work with and learn from Amy Meissner. I attended one of her online mending sessions, participated in her call to create a radical archive, and installed Meissner's superbly selected spring juried exhibition under the theme Vivid at Fairbanks Arts. Knowing Amy and her craft motivated me to begin working hands-on with discarded quilts. And in 2021, I created my first soft sculpture. The mother braid was inspired by the daily ritual of braiding my daughter's long hair. Connecting the threads across mediums and reimagining fiber as form has been a revealing exploration and a window into other caregivers' thoughtful household labor. Unlike with painting, I am able to work on these soft sculptures in my home while caregiving. Here, I was using softness and beauty to explore a personal discomfort. What objects have linked my family for generations? This work centers around ideas of my own legacy, what the mothers in my family have passed to each other and then to me, and what articles carry importance or perhaps are undervalued. I'd like to just take a moment to say thank you to the Nell Street Arts Center and to my cohort of artist mothers. It truly is an honor to share this space with you.
My Tlingit name is Wushkindenda'at and means people walking together one behind another on an upward trajectory. I'm Lily Hope, a Tlingit artist living in Juneau, Alaska, the unceded land of the Tlingit Occoquan. I'm mother to 5 children, ages 14 to 5 years of age, Nicholas, Louis, Mary, Eleanor, and Anastasia. My work as mother, artist, and teacher are interwoven and inseparable. These expressions birth from a 10-year apprenticeship with my own mother, Clarissa Rizal, in the finger-twined art form of Chilkat weaving. Our ceremonial regalia documents clan history, dreams, stories, identity. We weave for our clan opposites, for our partners, for our children. Each ceremonial robe can take upwards of 2,500 hours or 2.5 years of part-time work to create. As a mother of 5 and holder and teacher of traditional technology, I'm duly aware of the urgency and honor of passing on knowledge. That doing my best in both mothering and teaching leaves a legacy of dedication, encouragement, and interdependent sufficiency, a healthy practice of relying on each other. For that is what our human experience is about, yes? Relationships. We're engaged in weaving lineages, weaving the prayers of our ancestors, the goodness and challenges of now, all while protecting our students and children to live long lives, giving them the foundation of knowing where they come from, pride in their families, the capacity to thrive and to express themselves. That's what art means. It means our teachers don't die. It means the spirit of all things live on in us, in our art.
I'm Amy Komar. I live in Homer with my partner and 2 young children. I'm relatively new to the Homer community. We moved a few months prior to the pandemic after living in Fairbanks for 15 years. I've been working as a professional studio artist ever since I received my studio art degree from the University of Texas at Austin in 2001. I'm drawn to depicting the world of emotion in my art. I use color, form, and intentional mark making to communicate these internal landscapes. I approach each piece as a record keeper, visual journals that help me process and articulate experiences that are often difficult to put into words. I believe that art has a tremendous power to heal and connect us. Painting is the cathartic way I process and reconcile the highs and lows of motherhood. I paint on a variety of surfaces. I am most drawn to the delicate eggshell surface of clay boards. I explore color theory in my work, and clay boards achieve the saturated and vibrant hues I strive for. I work all of my panels wet, building hundreds of layers of thin washes of paint to create depth and dimension. I also gravitate towards found objects that have history and soul. While all art presents elements of problem solving, found objects present a unique challenge. Firstly, I want to preserve and honor the integrity of the object. Secondly, painting beaded patterns across their three-dimensional shapes stretches my imagination and refines my mark making. I intentionally paint small works. I like how they create an intimacy between the viewer and the art. They invite you to get close and to lean in. I spent the first half of last year working on clayboard panels for this exhibit. I had unprocessed emotions from early motherhood, and it was important for me to start here. Early season is representative of feelings of isolation, loneliness, and postpartum depression. I relied on color theory and geometric dot work to encapsulate what these emotions felt like to me. Monsters in the Closet relates to feelings of mom rage and the shame and guilt I experienced as a result of those feelings. I went with a darker, more moody color palette and juxtaposed it with highlights of iridescent paint and curvaceous line work to convey the complexity of these feelings. Meal Plans quantifies how much time in motherhood I spend thinking about, planning, purchasing, and preparing food for my family. I knew before I started this piece that I wanted to create a grid across the panel. The grid is an exaggeration of a calendar, a never-ending calendar. I spent months working this piece, having great fun creating a variety of detail in each box. Acts of Service is a piece about the labor involved in running a house and caring for children. I relied on the repetitive mark making to communicate the dailiness of these tasks. I was also thinking about my own mother and the appreciation I have for her daily acts of service that were involved in raising my siblings and I. I'm a child of the 70s, and I wanted to paint in a color palette that was reminiscent of that decade and reminded me of my childhood. The second half of last year, I switched my focus from clay boards and started painting on found objects. I was thinking about what it feels like to mother in the 21st century. I intentionally selected objects because of their original use and the symbolism in their shapes. Textbook Pusher was created on a vintage caliper. Calipers are tools that are used to take precise measurements. In this piece, I was thinking about how the American healthcare system approaches childbirth and specifically related that to my experience of labor and delivery in a hospital setting. I chose a circus-themed color palette to capture the spectacle and created patterns that showed movement and vibration. This next piece is a Russian toy cap gun from the 1970s. More than 320,000 students have experienced gun violence in US schools since the Columbine High massacre in 1999. In 2022 alone, there have been 46 school shootings in the US. As a mother of school-aged children, this is personal. The same politicians who express thoughts and prayers as a response to these horrific events continue to take money from NRA lobbyists and do very little to solve this problem in a meaningful way. I painted this piece as an act of prayer and meditation. Each dot that I made over the course of a few months was offered as a mother's prayer for protection and for resolution. For me, motherhood is a portal for transformation. It is a catalyst for personal growth. Motherhood teaches me about mindfulness, presence, and strength. It is forgiveness and humility. It is messy and mundane, playful and chaotic. It is comfort and vulnerability. It is loving another so deeply you fear you may never survive if that child was ever lost. It strengthens my voice and cuts the bullshit. It is where I run to and where I run from. It is a wellspring of material to draw on. It is losing yourself and being found. Thank you.
My name is Amy Meisner. I've lived as an uninvited guest on Dena'ina homeland for 22 years, a place currently called Anchorage, Alaska. I'm the 12th firstborn daughter to a firstborn daughter, a lineage stretching to 1640s Sweden. My son, Pelle, shown here, stitching with my daughter, Astrid, broke this line. These generations of women on my mother's side were all craft practitioners. They worked in the home with children at their feet. Before I was a mother, I was a painter. And before this, I worked in the garment industry for 12 years. But it's motherhood that brought me to work that hinges on the literal, physical, and emotional labor of women. I'm an artist with a craft-based practice, a mixture of materials-based haptic knowledge and conceptual discourse. I work with abandoned or discarded domestic textiles, quilts, crochet, embroideries made by unknown women. My work does not exist without theirs. It's their unknown histories and traces that interest me most. Sample Home number 3 is part of a series exploring the reverse sides of embroidered samplers that feature houses. I'm interested in entering a narrative from an embroidery's messy reverse. I think this is a space for emotional truth in the same way truth is embedded in fiction. I'm most comfortable working in series. Milk on the Tongue was intended for this show, but was accepted into the Alaska Biennial at the Anchorage Museum, where it will be exhibited for the next few months. It's important to share here because the piece reflects the repetitive act of breastfeeding, something I did for 4 years, often with emotional and physical difficulty. The writer Mary Carr in The Art of Memoir provides the image of circling a campfire, poking repeatedly into the coals with a stick as a metaphor for finding her way into a narrative. I do the same, just with a needle and cloth. The time and labor of repeating and restitching these pieces allowed me to feel memory in an alternative way over the course of several months. To repeat was a way of rewiring that memory. Within this work, overproduction or underproduction aren't variables for success. Perceptions of the beautiful and terrible coexist, and my engagement isn't tied to another's nourishment. In another book, Vibrant Matter by Jane Bennett, the author asks us to recognize not only that we are vital materiality, but that we are also surrounded by it. She also suggests we take up the ethical task of cultivating the ability to discern non-human vitality, to become perceptually open to it. Women have known this for thousands of years, and we've been persecuted for this kind of intuition or understanding that objects and materials have agency. Familiars explores the assemblage of abandoned wool garment with found objects from the natural world. These forms begin to answer the question of how this reconfiguration might express a tangle of materials' willingness to exist in a form that feels animated and childlike, yet reflects the shadowy, occult image of the constant companion. This is the last of my pieces in the show. Making a survival blanket engaged the act of repair to accompany the space between disuse and reuse. This process of darning into the holes left by the original crocheter, maker unknown, draws together margins of an unused crocheted coverlet to reconsider use value, creating weight, warmth, and visibility where this didn't exist prior. It's a misuse of the original maker's intention for fragile bed decor and home beautification, but also an accompaniment, an act of care towards a vulnerable, unwanted object. It is a raw acknowledgement that the role of a mother is to keep her children alive. The image in the middle is part of the process of darning into one of the doily sections. The image on the right shows the stitched reflective tape as it lights up in the dark with a flash. Because of my time in the garment industry, because of where I live, and my deep interest in prolonging the life of materials and objects, I acknowledge repair as vital to my studio and social practice. I've been working with the Anchorage Museum's Seed Lab since 2019, providing community spaces for repair as a site for learning. As part of the programming for Mother, I'm hosting a repair workshop in the gallery on Saturday, December 3rd. Teaching people to repair their garments and textiles is certainly a way of discouraging waste and providing autonomy while pushing against prevalent consumerism. But it's also a way of fostering a repair culture by altering one's first response to brokenness and putting skills into the hands of people who can then repair for other community members who don't have the privilege of time or resources to do so themselves. This social practice spreads caregiving through repair. Thank you. We are 7 mother artists creating from within our own mothering experiences, but also in response to our relationships with one another. This has proved sustenance, balm, commitment, and reckoning. We do this work to contextualize, remember, and honor all stages of mothering. By couching our questions in reprieve and tenderness, we reinforce connections to mothers who came before, to those seen every day, and to others who have yet to become. Thank you for travel support from the Bunnell Street Art Center, making it possible for us to all attend the installation and opening of Mother on December 2nd, 2022. Prior to this, some in our group have never met in person. Mother will exhibit again in September 2023 at the Bear Gallery in Fairbanks, Alaska. This has been emotional work. The work itself is emotional. We have come together as a group and cried together many times. And that has really been valuable to me, to have a really safe space to do that. And to feel those feelings and to feel them with other women, other mothers, knowing that they understand, knowing that there's no judging happening. I feel like anymore that is becoming less and less in our society. So to have this time with these women has been a real gift.
Currently, at this moment, as we're recording this, I believe that several of us are at home with kids that are sick or still too young to be in school or don't have other caregivers. So we're actively mothering right now. And the amount of mothering that went into just us being able to meet here today to speak. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, I think, in everybody's life and experience that we engineered this moment in time to be here. And I just want to honor that, because I think there's a lot of work that happens all the time.
I just want to say that each of us brings to the table something different. And when we come together and allow ourselves to be vulnerable with each other, it really deepens the support that we can give to one another. And it's incredibly powerful to be in this group with all of you women. And I'm very thankful for it.
I would like to share something. My studio practice, all of these years, has always been very much a solo endeavor into solitude. And so it was really powerful for me to be with these women each week, talking about motherhood and art. And I loved how throughout the course of the year, bits of our conversations and things that each of them have said really sat with me as I was alone in the studio. Sorry, my son is homesick, and I think he's telling me my time is up. But it was just such an honor to be a part of this group, and just thank you so much.
I feel like we as a group have been able to show up for each other in a really sincere way from the get-go, and that has really built a lot of trust among one another to be really open and honest about where we're at and how we have to learn how to lean forward to do something together. And being a part of a group process really helps us keep showing up and sort of like getting our hands messy and opening our hearts more, and to offer each other grace too along the way. I'm so grateful for every single person here today.
There are just several people I've never met in person, or I've only met Amy one time, and we live in the same city. But I love that I can text people and do check-ins. And I mean, working in a group is hard for me, but this is fun. So I don't think I would change anything, honestly. Yeah.
Well, that global pandemic sure made connecting virtually of the utmost importance. And suddenly building community became more accessible. And I think we really used that as a vehicle to connect to each other. And we've been able to create something where there was nothing before, simply by gathering online. And so the culmination of that effort in the exhibition, Mother, coming up shortly, is going to be really wonderful, because it will be the first time that all of us have been together in person. And then continuing on and having built multiple opportunities, we will meet again, and it will be, I think, really important for each of us to see how the work has changed and grown through this process, through the multiple exhibitions.
This has been really motivating to continue making work on good deadlines, and the encouragement and support of the women in this room has been priceless.
Thanks, everybody.